Trump took a meeting yesterday with Masayoshi Son. He is the CEO of Japanese conglomerate SoftBank to solidify a deal that would bring a $50 billion investment into the United States, with the potential to add up to 50,000 jobs here. Now, this deal, a win for the president-elect, who immediately took to, well, or else Twitter, to say Masa of Japan has agreed to invest $50 billion in the U.S. toward businesses and 50,000 new jobs. Trump also introduced the Japanese billionaire.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Masa of SoftBank from Japan, and he's just agreed to invest $50 billion in the United States and 50,000 jobs. One of the truly great men. Thank you.
He also tweeted, he said this, quote, Masa said he would never do this had we not won the election. Now, the CEO is pointing to the fact that the president-elect wants to scale back regulations, something many business owners say has made the U.S. uncompetitive in the past. SoftBank owns 82% of wireless carrier Sprint, as well as a major stake in Chinese e-commerce site Alibaba, among many other businesses. Sprint had attempted to merge with T-Mobile, but was shot down by regulators. Shares of Sprint hit their best levels in 2.5 years back on Tuesday. Those are your headlines. Back to you guys.
All right, thanks, Cheryl.
President-elect Trump adding another notch to his past year. Earlier today, Time magazine named him Person of the Year. Mr. Trump called it a great honor. The magazine said it was a pretty straightforward decision for them. Then talked about his search for a Secretary of State, Mr. Trump did. He says Mitt Romney is still under active consideration. And the expanding search has nothing to do with the recent past these two men share together.
It's not about revenge, it's about what's good for the country, and I'm able to put this stuff behind us, and I hit him very hard also, you know, which is very nice that the press doesn't cover that. I'm very happy about that, actually.
Chief National Correspondent Ed Henry is live outside Trump Hotel in Washington, D.C. on Pennsylvania Ave. Ed, good morning to you. It appears they continue to move forward quickly. What is your sense about what you're hearing?
Yeah, well, look, the president-elect himself today said he'll have more announcements today and tomorrow on other non-Secretary of State jobs. Remember, you still have Veterans Affairs, a big job, obviously, to try to fix that, all of the problems there. The Department of Homeland Security, keeping this nation safe. So there's a whole bunch he still has to do, and he says he's moving quickly on that. On top of Secretary of State, he said likely next week. You mentioned Mitt Romney still alive, despite these reports suggesting, well, maybe he's tilting towards General Petraeus or Ambassador John Bolton. So that is still very much up for grabs. And then, by the way, in terms of outreach, Mayor Rahm Emanuel of Chicago, another Democrat, coming in this very hour to meet with Donald Trump in New York at Trump Tower. Remember, Al Gore, the former vice president, was there a couple of days ago, so maybe surprising Democrats that he's doing all this outreach. And I think the other point to make is when you look at these picks coming fast and furious, think about what the New York Times said 1 week in. They said the transition was in disarray and that he was behind schedule, basically, and things were falling apart. He has now really picked that up and is ahead of where a lot of other Democrats and Republicans are.
You're outside the hotel. Give us a sense. Apparently business is humming there. Apparently some questions as well. What do you have on that?
Well, Vice President-elect Mike Pence was here last night giving a speech about the conservative agenda, but also obviously using this backdrop to promote the Trump brand. The government of Bahrain is having a reception here tonight, and there's been a lot of chatter here in Washington that foreign diplomats are snapping up hotel rooms, conference rooms to hold big events here, money that will go into the pockets, obviously, of the Trump organization. Critics are saying this is a conflict of interest, though, as you know, the president-elect has been insisting he's pulling back from the family business. What?
That is one of the frames for this, is that, and we're seeing it with others, that they are saying that, of course, we'll stay at the Trump Hotel. We're going to go see the president, and when we see the president, we want to say, you have a wonderful hotel there. So he is really profiting from this, and it really creates real conflicts of interest and real appearance of conflict of interest.
I think what Ivanka is trying to say, who cares? Who cares? This is big league stuff. This is our country. Our country is going bad. We're going to save our country. I don't care about hotel occupancy. It's peanuts compared to what we're doing.
the president-elect suggesting there his focus is on governing. And let's not forget, he has already signaled that on December 15th he'll have a news conference to suggest he's pulling back officially and turning the business over to his children.
Well, we'll see what happens in the parade outside that hotel.
Right.
Ed, thank you, sir. Ed Henry there in D.C. Martha. The theme now is America First. You watched it play out last night in North Carolina. What was your takeaway?
This has been Donald Trump's theme all year long, and this is why he won the White House. We've seen in the past week that he wants these deals, business deals, jobs to stay at home with the carrier deal and the announcement from SoftBank that they're going to invest double the amount of money that they promised before to invest. And Donald Trump has made it very clear that he's going to be working with Congress and Paul Ryan to foster a business-friendly environment within the country so that all businesses can thrive here at home rather than having to go overseas, whether it's through a reduction in the corporate tax rate, tax reform, or repealing Obamacare, which has had an enormous negative effect on job growth in this country over the past 7 years.
Let me come back to that whole theme in a moment here. But first, James Mattis. Do you think he gets the waiver from Congress?
I think he will. Republicans actually last night put the waiver issue into the spending bill that's coming up for a vote at the end of this week. If Democrats want to deny James Mattis his waiver based on that issue, there will be a government shutdown, and it will be their responsibility. So Republicans are pushing the issue. It expedites the issue to make it happen before Donald Trump takes office on January 20th, before he's sworn in. And so I think he'll get the waiver. Outside of Democrats trying to be obstructionist because they're opposed to Trump, there hasn't really been a lot of bipartisan criticism of James Mattis. He has a lot of respect from both Democrats and Republicans for his judgment on the battlefield.
Secretary of State, I thought Mr. Trump made some news this morning in that interview on NBC. He said that he will get an announcement next week. And he was asked to take somebody off the list that's been made public. He did not do that, which tells us Mitt Romney is still in the running, as he said. What is your sense about who he decides?
It's hard to tell. He had the list of 4. He expanded that list to 10. John Bolton is still in the running. Rudy Giuliani is still in the running. Mitt Romney, who has been roundly criticized by Trump advisors publicly, is still in the running, according to Donald Trump, who wouldn't take it off the table. General Petraeus would add to the general list. There's been a little bit of pushback on that. Joe Manchin is an interesting choice, considering he's a Democrat from West Virginia, Democratic senator. Democrats have to figure out what to do with that seat should he be chosen for the job. So this is clearly a position that Donald Trump thinks is very important in a representation of the United States around the world. And based on his America First mantra, he wants to make sure he has the right person to do that job.
What was curious about part of his answer, I thought, Katie, was that he said, Mitt and I have come a long way, basically.
Yeah. Well,
he's looking for that comfort zone.
Well, and the thing is when they got together, there was a lot of criticism of, well, Mitt Romney said horrible things about Donald Trump. But the bottom line is that they were willing to put aside their differences, their egos, and really come together about what they can do for the betterment of the country. Whether they were able to reconcile all of their viewpoints, whether it's on Russia, other issues, so that Romney gets the position, is another story. As we just saw, there's a lot of people in line for the job, and I'm sure Donald Trump will make the best decision that he thinks to represent his Make America Great Again slogan all around the world.
You commute between Washington and New York City. We know what's going on in this town. Yeah. Give us a sense of Washington when you tick off a list of things to do. Tax reform, Obamacare, infrastructure. A lot of promises out there. Well, how is that now being received?
Well, considering Republicans are running the Senate and the House at this point, a lot of those promises can be, fulfilled. It's more difficult when there's a split government to make that happen. But there's always a danger in over-promising, as President Obama did in his first term. So Donald Trump doesn't seem to be worried about that, but it seems like they're ready to get things done. Their Obamacare repeal is on the table as soon as the new Congress and as soon as Donald Trump is sworn in. They're ready to get things rolling in D.C. for the first time in a while.
I believe we're in the process of putting together one of the all-time great cabinets that has ever been assembled in our nation's history. We have some great people going to be named over the next couple of days, too. But to accomplish our goals, we must reject the failed approaches of the past. We must move past the tired conventional thinking of Washington, D.C.
So that was President-elect Donald Trump speaking in Fayetteville, North Carolina earlier tonight as part of his thank you tour. But the liberal mainstream media, they refuse to accept that Donald Trump will be your next president. Now to take a look at one of the so-called news networks, look how they're treating your president-elect.
This was a white lash. This was a white lash against a changing country. It was a white lash against a black president in part.
I want to recognize a lot of our viewers at home. This is frightening to them, and I think we should acknowledge that. This may feel to a lot of our viewers at home like a national emergency. Why? Because Steve Bannon has been described as someone who has been described as a white supremacist, as someone who is an anti-Semite.
Inflammatory words about Islam from Donald Trump's choice to be his White House National Security Advisor.
This hour, hateful groups emboldened by Donald Trump's election. Online opinions moving offline.
We did talk unity at his big rally in Cincinnati. The problem was, you know, he kind of dissed Hillary Clinton. The crowd chanted, "Lock her up." The crowd was mostly white.
Still with us, Donald Trump's former campaign manager, Corey Lewandowski, and joining us now, former Obama economic advisor, Austan Goolsbee. You know, Corey, I've gone over these numbers a lot with Austan over the years. 13 million more Americans on food stamps, 8 million more in poverty since Obama's president, the lowest labor participation rate since the 70s, the worst home ownership rate in 51 years. Let's go to Donald Trump from earlier today, and let's look at him announcing the deal with SoftBank. $50 billion investment, 50,000 jobs. Watch this.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Masa of SoftBank from Japan, and he's just agreed to invest $50 billion in the United States and 50,000 jobs. And he's one of the great men of industry, so I just want to thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So, Austan, I'll ask you, President Obama said, well, what's he going to do with Carrier? Wave his magic wand? How's he going to get all these companies to invest? Well, it appears that his magic wand is called a telephone, and he picks up the phone, and he got the deal done that Obama couldn't get done. Is that a good thing or a bad thing, Austan, that we have 1,100 safe Carrier jobs, $50 billion investment?
Well, no, Carrier's a different case. This SoftBank will look at it. This looks pretty good to me. I think
pretty
that's
good?
a good.
$50 billion is pretty good? Yeah, 50.
I
just
think
pretty
that's
good.
a good win. Now, I would highlight that Obama's added more than 15 million jobs since 2010, so he better step up his game as president to try to match that. But I think this was a good win for him.
Yeah, I know. And that's, Corey, that's exactly why Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Ohio were easy wins for Donald Trump, or relatively easy.
That's why the majority of America voted against him. But it's
but he didn't campaign in New York, New Jersey, and California because we don't have a system based on the popular vote. Corey.
I didn't say we did. I didn't say we did.
No, look, Sean, Donald Trump has been the president-elect of this country for just over 4 weeks. He saved 1,000 jobs in the state of Indiana, which means 1,000, not only those direct 1,000 jobs, but 1,100, but all the extra jobs that go along with that, which means a great Christmas, which you can say again, Merry Christmas, because Donald Trump is now the president. You can say it again. It's okay to say. It's not a pejorative word anymore. The other thing is, $50 billion and 50,000 jobs in the first 4 weeks. We continue down this path. We're going to have to have an increase in immigration to fill up all these jobs, and we're going to have too many in our own country.
Actually, that would be fewer jobs than Barack Obama has been adding for the last 6 years.
Austan, with all due respect, you are the only American that gives him good grades on the economy, but he's gone in, less than 60 days. He's done. And the Obama era, thankfully, is over, and we'll survive, and we'll clean up his mess. Do you have a problem with a 10% repatriation rate for trillions of dollars for multinational corporations? Do you have a problem with a 15% corporate tax rate?
Yeah,
because corporations, we know, don't pay taxes. They pass the cost on to consumers, don't they?
Well, you're kind of mixing a few things there. On the corporate rate, as you know, what they're actually talking about is cutting corporate taxes by a lot and paying for it by putting a national sales tax equivalent onto consumers. I have some problems with that. The 10% repatriation
I didn't see the national
rate,
sales tax aspect of it. Did you, Corey?
They're not calling it a national sales tax,
Donald
but
Trump
that's
has never said anything about a national
adjustment. They're calling it.
Look,
I never heard
Donald
it.
Trump has never said anything about a national sales tax, and what he said was
No, he's
our
talking about
country
a
deserves to
border
be
adjustment.
competitive.
That's good.
What he said is our country deserves to be competitive with all the other industrialized countries in the world, and we pay a higher marginal tax rate if you're a business than everybody else does. So let's put our economy on par or better than the others. So let's lower the corporate tax rate to 15% so we can be competitive again. What's wrong with America first?
Boy, there's nothing wrong with lowering the corporate tax rate if you pay for it. And we're going to see if he's willing to pay.
We're going to get lectured on the Economic Council advisor that gave us more debt than 43 presidents before him combined.
Cut the deficit in half, Sean.
Before him
Cut
combined.
the deficit in half.
By the way, Corey, isn't this a much better experience than CNN? You got to admit, it's much better.
Well, the good news, look, it's not 8-on-1, which I appreciate. I don't mind the 1-on-1. I'll do that all the time.
No, it's actually 2-on-1. It's me and you against him.
That's right. I'm not used to these odds.
We have a good time over here, Corey. You're going to like it.
All right. I want my steak dinner when you get to New York, Mr. Goolsbee. You owe me a steak dinner with wine.
I owe you.
Yes, you do. Thank you. All right.